In life, every 5 to 10 years that passes us by is an opportunity to reflect back on the choices we made, the progress we made, and sometimes the regrets we have for things that we didn't take advantage of. Well, I don't like when people live in regret for anything in their life. And so today's video, what I want to do is talk to anybody that's currently in their 20s and give a perspective as someone that's currently 33 for 5 things that I would have said to myself if I had the ability to go back in time and have a conversation. Let's get into it. Okay, so first up is taking more risk. Now, what I mean by this is thinking about it in terms of your career, jobs, starting a business, moving states, getting out of your hometown, or heck, even leaving the country and doing something else like that instead. You can really fill in the blank for whatever you deem as a risk. But the point is, during your 20s is a perfect time to take as many risks as possible. Healthy risk, right? Don't put yourself in harm or danger or anything like that. But I think that it's a time to take risk because you have a lot of time. And this is the time to make mistakes and kind of find out what groove you fit into from there too. A lot of times when we're getting into our 20s, this is kind of the first point in life, I think, where we're entrusted with taking care of ourselves fully. You're no longer in your parents' house. You're getting out there into the professional world. You're figuring out what you do and you don't like. You're figuring out some of the programming you went through in your life that worked and some that didn't. So you're having to learn things and unlearn things at the same time. People that take most risk in life are the ones that find out the most about themselves. And when you find out more about yourself, especially when you do it in your 20s, by the time you get to your 30s, you're ahead of a lot of your peers and you know a lot more about what does and what doesn't work for you. Whether this is, you don't like to work in corporate, and you like to work in nonprofits, or whether this is, you like to live in the West Coast, but not the East Coast, or something like that. As you keep a list or as you keep a mental note of these things as you move forward, it helps you align more with what your purpose and your passions are in life. So you're not having to constantly sit there and try to feel like you have to find them like a lot of other people. You've lived these through experiences. When you are taking these things on when you're in your 20s, I think this is a very freeing time to do it. It's easier to go ahead and take these risks now because you have less obligations. As you go on in life, things get harder and it gets so much harder to stay on path for things that you want to do because unexpected things happen in life. While you have the freshest slate, you have the easiest way to kind of work throughout these things. There's no better time to go ahead and take a risk than when you have the least amount to lose. And I would definitely look back in my 20s and take more of those risks. Okay, so next up is to take care of your health. Now, what I mean by this is to have some form of healthy routine in your life to some extent. And I know what you're thinking, I'm in my 20s, like, I'm good. Like, I can eat whatever I want. I can go out and party and do all these things. I get it. I used to say that too. I used to think that I would be like this forever. I'd be like, everybody else gets to a point where they start feeling hangovers or the food they eat starts getting to them, but not me. I'm different. I have news for you that changes. It may not change at the same time that it changes for your peers, but it will change at some point. When I was in college, I used to leave class and I would go party. We'd party all night till 3, 4 in the morning. I'd get 2 hours of sleep, wake up, go to the gym, and repeat. It didn't matter what day it was. It didn't matter what was going on. I could have not even eaten food and done that and been fine the next day. But I tell you what, at one point in your life, you'll try that and it won't be the same anymore. It'll hit you like a truck and it'll never go back from there. What I say all that to say is that feeling of invincibility, that feeling to think that your health is going to be like that forever is not true. And it's when you get to around your 30s that it starts to kind of slow down quite a bit and you notice these little differences. I want to kind of give a little analogy of the way that I like to put this. Imagine you and a peer are kind of like this. You're on a path and you're on a great straight line path where you're taking care of yourself and everything's going well. In your 20s, what happens is as you take care of yourself and you do these things, you keep going up. You're over here. And then as your peer keeps going, they start making little choices. They eat out a lot of fast food. They go out and party more. And all these little choices, right? They're not getting enough sleep. They're not going to the gym. They're not staying active. And as you go on, it goes from staying on the same path like this to going up and you're staying up and they veer off. It's not because of any one big drastic change that they made. It's these small choices we make each and every day that lead to the overall output of being unhealthy and having to deal with these ramifications as you go on down the line. Whether it is you get up outside and you go and take a walk every day, or if you go to the gym, or if you skateboard, ride bikes, row boats. Heck, I don't care if you play competitive foosball and you're able to go ahead and break up a sweat. Go ahead and get some money and make sure you're doing something to stay active. And not only with just staying active and mobility, but I would say have some type of healthy routine or things that you eat. Look into meal prep. Look into eating something that's healthy. You don't have to be a health nut. You don't have to try and go for a 6-pack abs or something like that. But having some type of intentional health routine, foods, or something you do to keep yourself active and moving throughout the 10 years that you go from your 20s, it will make drastic differences that you can't perceive for now, but you will greatly thank yourself for making these small changes each and every day by the time you get to that point. And if you still don't want to take my word for it, what I'll go ahead and tell you is just to kind of take a step back and look around yourself out there in the world. There are plenty of people in their 30s that look like they're in their 50s. There are plenty of people in their 30s that look like they're in their 20s still. And the only difference between these people really comes down to these small intentional choices they made each and every day when they didn't feel like they needed to, but they did anyway. And it paid off 10 years down the line, and it will pay off 20 years down the line. Make the right choice. Okay, so up next is a quote that I love to live by, and that is, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. I know this sounds very simplistic, but it's meant to be simplistic because you can remember it and you can abide by that. A lot of times we take criticism from people that don't really have what we want. They haven't walked the shoes in which we're trying to go for. They haven't opened up a business for something that we want to emulate or copy or kind of take inspiration from. In fact, I think a lot of times we take criticism sometimes from people that are closest to us that don't really have the experiences or the things that we want. So for example, like if you want to pick up and leave and go across the country and start a new life and just kind of experience something like that, but you're getting a lot of criticism from someone in your family that's telling you, don't do this, or like, why are you doing this? That's a dumb move. You should stay here. This is where your family is, or whatever else it may be. I get that. But what if this person has never left that state? What if they've traveled out of that state one time and they're born, raised, lived there their whole life? Their perspective is minimal, but their criticism comes forward anyway. So why let them criticize you for something that they haven't done? It comes down to a simple principle of, if you wouldn't take advice from the person, why would you take criticism? Because they haven't done it, they haven't experienced it, they haven't had the same thoughts. And the only thing that you're likely to do is distract yourself from your own goals and your own desires. And if you do this enough, where you listen to the criticism from people that you wouldn't take advice from, it'll set you back because you'll get accustomed to listening to these negative voices, not the ones that can cheer you on from a place of experience or what they have done before. So remembering that simple quote of don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from, especially in those hard moments where you feel like you're being pressured to do something that you don't want to do, will help keep you aligned and on track so that you don't make these decisions that you'll later regret. And on the other side of that, the reason why I think it's okay to take criticism from someone you would take advice from comes down to the simple reason that if they are in a position where you want to be, or if they have done something that you want to do, or if they emulate something that you like, they're likely going to try to be rooting you on. And if anything, they'll probably try to help steer you away from some of the mistakes or the difficulties they had to face too. So sometimes that criticism that comes from them is more constructive, meant in a way to build you up and to help you succeed, because they're looking back to a version of themselves that was younger that maybe didn't have these tools or this help instead. Kind of like I'm doing with this video here. Okay, so next up is to create a rainy day fund. In other words, this just means savings of some kind. It's tough. We're in a rough economy. Maybe it's hard to find a job, or hard to find a job where you feel like you have any type of excess left over in your month. I get it. And that's why I think that sometimes setting realistic goals is where you need to start. Whether this is $50 a month or $100 a month or more, if you're able to, this will make a difference. $50 a month is $600 a year. $100 a month is $1,200 a year. $200 may not be everything to cover everything in your whole life, but I will tell you that most places where you live, unless you're like in a high cost living area or something like that, you can probably pay a rent or get close enough to it with that, right? The reason I say that it is important to create this rainy day fund is for a couple of reasons. You never really, first and foremost, know what's going to happen in life. I'll give you an example. Like, look, I have been laid off of a job before. I have been fired from a job before. I've left the job without notice one time because my health felt like it was at risk. And so a lot of these things don't really call for advanced planning. Sometimes things just happen to you. And if in the case, like you get laid off and you don't get a severance package or something, what do? If you're living paycheck to paycheck each and every time you get paid, and you're one emergency away from things kind of just turning over on yourself, it's in your best interest to start saving something. The amount of times I've been there in my life where I had the mentality of, I got $10, it's time to spend 15. Well, this is how I grew up, because I just didn't have an education like that, like most people know. Back in high school, I had half of a semester of personal finance that I couldn't remember for the life of me if I tried. And I think this is pretty typical of a lot of people too. So you're getting thrust out into the world without any real skills or any real framework as to how to do these things too. And they continue a lot into your life if you don't start these habits. I used to work as a mortgage lender, and I used to also work as a financial coach. And so in both those capacities, what I had to do was get into the nitty gritty of people's bank statements, their financials, and every single aspect of their life. There really wasn't anything that was hidden in that aspect. And so you realize that it's very easy to get to the point where you're in your 50s, 60s, or at the end of your life, where the accumulation of lack of plans or lack of savings or just these habits that have been put into your life really catch up to you. And it's a lot scarier as you get older, and it's harder to get yourself out of this position or to just jump into a job or to get hired on the spot for something instead. I think it's important to save this or to create a rainy day fund because you just never know when you need it. It does not have to come down to a job. It can be a medical emergency. It can be you having to pick up and get a plane ticket to go across the country to go see your family last minute. Heck, you could have to go live and take care of your family because some medical emergency happened or something like that. The point is that you never know what's going to happen in life. And as a person that has been in both positions where I have had emergencies and things hit me in life when I was not prepared, and all of a sudden you have to dance with your credit cards or figure out how to get out of this or sell something or just get in this position of desperation where you're likely to make bad decisions, it's so much better to be proactive about it. Start taking a little bit of money aside each month and put it into a savings, because you never know when you're going to need that. And I know it sounds hard to find this room, but $50 a month isn't all that much money. That's one less Starbucks drink and a pastry a week. That's 2 less meals out in the month. That's 1 less visit to the bar in the month. You can do that. And if you can sacrifice these small things in your life while still living your life and being happy and enjoying it, you'd be amazed how much you can put aside. And in those moments of dire need, when you really need something, it is so much better to have something to rely on versus nothing. I don't care if that's $1,000 and it's not able to pay for everything. It'll keep you afloat and it'll give you some more room so you can make a better decision and you don't feel like your back's against the wall. And this brings me to my last point, which is that it's never too late. We get a lot of pressure, especially when we get out to the world, your early 20s, your mid 20s, your late 20s. There's always this pressure to just kind of have it figured out. Find your career, get established, and then stick with it. Find your person in life, get married and stick with it, or do whatever else it may be in life. I think there's so much pressure that's put on us to just perform and get up to where society's expectations are. I don't really feel like life works like this a lot of times, and there's a lot more gray area there too. So if you're a person that's able to find your path quickly, fantastic. But if you're not, and it takes you a longer time, if you feel like you're at the end of your 20s right now, getting closer to your 30s, and you feel like you're not where you want to be, or you haven't accomplished it, or you feel like you're disappointing yourself, don't, because it's not too late. As long as you have air in your lungs, you have an opportunity to do anything you want to in this world. And I think that's what the misconception is, that the 20s are like you have to figure it all out. I know people well into their 30s, 40s, 50s that are still restarting in their life, and they're still reinventing themselves, and they're still pursuing things that they are now realizing that actually matter to them. It's never too late unless you count yourself out. And I don't encourage you to ever do that, because I don't care if you're missing 2 legs, if you're blind, I don't care if you didn't know how to read growing up. As long as you apply yourself and you have a goal of something you want to do in your life, you can do it. And I believe in your ability to do that. And I hope that you can kind of take a message from there to know that at the end of this video, if you're sticking around to this point, I believe in your ability to do anything, and you should believe it with the same conviction too. If this video helped you in any way, please go ahead and drop me a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. I'm gonna see you out here in the next one. Take care for now. Have a good day. Peace.